In the immortal words of Jay-Z, the internet is the Wild West. I used to believe that just meant that you could stake your claim anywhere, until I staked my claim and then saw it firsthand what was really meant by that statement. The Wild West was a gold rush, and once you got that gold, you better watch your back because somebody might kill you for it. And that's what happened to me, and that's why I decided to allow myself to be canceled.
I think that right now the problem is that everything is under the same umbrella.
Yeah, like murder and accusing someone of stealing your video.
Hi Natalia, it's Alyssa. Thank you for noticing me. Hi Natalia, it's Alyssa, obviously. So before I do your chart reading, I wanted to tell you a couple things, and don't worry, you don't have to like feel weird about this. These aren't bad. I want you to know that I'm sorry if it appears that I singled you out when you are a very creative, original creator, and a lot of people do these types of videos, so it can look just a little bit petty or catty, or like that I was against you in any way, shape, or form. A little backstory about that is that I saw that many of my videos had become trends, and I actually went to, this is me, okay, this is me being trolling, because I decided to troll a lot because I was kind of just getting really pissed off at like the whole YouTube culture and just the fact that I had been doing this for so long, and there's so many videos that were mine, and still feeling just like, well, nobody knows who the fuck I am, but they all know my videos, and that was just a weird thing for me. So I was just kind of going through it, you know. I'm not going to get my hair did because I went really gray. I always was gray, like when I was 12 and stuff, and I've always just dyed my hair, but I never really had a lot of gray outgrowth until the last couple years going through hell and back. And people like to say it's a vitamin deficiency. What happened to fucking stress? Stress makes your hair grow white. Anyway, like, how am I doing right now with the Natalia Taylor thing? I think it's really funny. I'm very interested in how people are trolling me, for one, because people do tend to show themselves, especially in a pack of like what the culture needs, what society needs, what we're willing to do to a person. And I've noticed a lot of people telling me that like it's stupid to defend myself in any way because I didn't copyright my work. And I was like, well, that's weird. I feel like anyone defending Natalia like is very much in the right, and I think that's good and that her fans are doing that. But I've just noticed a lot of people not just defending her, but coming after me like I should be humiliated. And I'm like, no.
Everything looks good on the surface. In the shadows I feel so useless. Can't go back now, what's done is done. Stop sweeping it under the stairs. Time to stare down my deepest fears. Cross off my demons one by one. It's how I wanna feel. Something that's so real. Oh, I'm chasing the sun before I come undone. Just need to catch some light so I can sleep tonight. I'm chasing the sun until my battle's won. Just wanna feel the rays, get to my golden state.
Did you feel, it felt like maybe you felt this on a grander scale? Because I went through like a snippet of nothing like that you went through. Like, did you feel it was anticlimactic at the end?
I think I know what you're saying. Because there's the time when like you're leading it because you're the first to do it, right? And then everyone piles on and does their own, which it's like this is the tricky part, right? Because this is my Gemini rising wanting to ramble. Is because I'm so two-minded about everything that I have to address, like, I don't ever want to sound bitter if I've inspired people to be their authentic selves or to branch out into vlogging just because I've done vlogging or performance art in video, whatever. It's the feeling, I think, it's not that it's anticlimactic, but it's that like you feel like almost like a wave, like you has not only washed over you, but like you got washed away, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like, okay, so I don't know. It's so hard for me because like I naturally am very shy and humble in person, but in videos I can be brash and very confrontational. But I think that's also because I was always bullied in my small town, and not to play that whole pity me thing, but I had to like learn how to confront people through my camera because I couldn't physically defend myself. When I feel discredited or when I feel forgotten when I've done something, I definitely know what it's like to feel misunderstood when I say, hey, no, I did that first. And people like, you're a fucking bitch. And I'm like, possibly, but like, why is it so hard? Like, it's like when Prince said that Justin Timberlake was ripping him off. No one looked at Prince as like, you're bitter. They looked at Prince as like, holy shit, you're a legend. And I kind of see that Sexy Back is a little bit like some of the things you've done. And I don't know if that's a man thing or like that's just like the internet is harder to stake claim.
One of the things that I like kind of wonder is the hate you get for calling someone out as a stealer, like, or a copycat, because it's like, okay, I understand, like, say, when Natalia was trying to tell me where she was coming from when I called her out, like why she bothered to respond, because she didn't have to respond to me, but why did she bother to respond? And it's because she didn't want people to think she was an unoriginal, right? So it's like, okay, so that kind of goes into like, no one wants to be an imposter. No one wants to be that person who can't think for themselves or anything. But I get that. But when you call someone out for taking something and say you don't know the story and that either one could be true, why on earth would you pile on the one who's calling them out? And that's what I feel like has become. We're deciding that we should troll or pile on the hate to the one who's saying, this was mine first, you took it, not the one who might be the unoriginal creator. I get that there's a fear of that, but it seems like they're pretty much in their metal, mansions, unable to get hit.
People pile onto the person who says, look, I think you might be ripping me off, because people are very, very have adverse reactions to anything that's like egotistical, quote unquote. But the truth is, we're talking about people who are reacting that way because they have not done something for the first time that other people have been followed.
Yeah.
A lot of people are not leaders and they don't know the feeling of like, you led something, you knocked down a wall, and now everyone's just walking through that wall freely. And it's not that you didn't want them to walk through freely. It's just that like there is this almost aggressive nature on the internet, especially, where erasure of our identity is something people are very willing to do. And the minute you say that, they're angry that we remember what we have accomplished. It's like so weird. It's so convoluted.
It is.
Like you're angry that I remember that I did something that, like, for the first time.
I understand, like, the hatred of the ego or whatever, but I'm like, how is it really? Does it come down to your ego? And your ego needs to get checked if you don't want to be invisible. Because on the same token, the same people who are saying, be invisible, bitch, are the same people who will try to tell somebody that their voice is invalid because they're irrelevant. So they're the ones who've pumped irrelevancy up to this standard that people are afraid of. So if I'm afraid of irrelevance, I'm not allowed to be, but you're allowed to make it seem like it's the worst thing ever.
I won't be left in the corner. Start running, I will have to wonder what's at the other end for me. I'll find my promised land of stone not built from sand. I know I'll reach my glory day. It's how I wanna feel. Something that's so real. Oh, I'm chasing the sun before I come undone. Just need to catch some light so I can sleep tonight. I'm chasing the sun until my battle's won. Just wanna feel the rain, get to my golden state.
I think one thing that really pushed me to come to YouTube and to take the risk was I grew up I feel like I wasn't valued. I don't feel like I was loved as an individual because I grew up in a very chaotic and super, very tumultuous household.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is that I think it pushed me because I always wanted to know the truth. And I think the risk was, to put myself out there was basically to do something of significance, because I feel like this is the one thing I really want in my life is significance. It's funny because I feel like you and I share that. I feel like we both want to be known, or to be not known, I'm sorry. That's
Acknowledged.
Acknowledged. There you go. Like I never felt like the acknowledged kid. I was always like the middle child, fuck Bridget. Bridget's like the one that's invisible.
What makes somebody actually desire being canceled? Because it's not easy. It wasn't an easy feat for me. There weren't days that I sat there crying because of how many people called me old or irrelevant or ugly. There were moments of reading over people who know me, watching them fawn over my death, like I was really, really being destroyed. Like I didn't have any hand in it, or I didn't agree to do it. That somehow karma had gotten the best of me and I was now dead because of the horrifying things that I do on a regular basis. Which is call people out who've taken my content. This is where everybody is going to call me brave. Because the bravest thing a woman can do is be a little bit chubby and jump into a pool with a model. Don't worry, guys. I stole that joke from Amy Schumer, who stole it from somebody else. And I can't remember who she stole it from. Isn't that what we're talking about?
And I walked into this I knew it was gonna happen. I was very interested. As soon as she asked, I'm like, okay, so I'm about to be canceled. Before the video went up, I knew about it for 5 days, what she was gonna do or something. Yeah. And I sat each day, kind of some days I had anxiety before it. Once it hit, and I just saw the comments rush in, and I was watching it. I was it was very interesting to see what they went for. Usually it's the jugular, you're old, irrelevant, ugly, those kind of things. That's what they would want to hit. I think you want to hit feminine nature with those things too, old and ugly.
If you're not hearing how much you've impacted the internet with your knowledge and your impact on astrology, if you're not hearing that back, of course you're going to fight for yourself. And of course you're going to fight for your legacy. And I think you've done that. And I think at a certain point, though, people that are not going to want to give you that credit, they just are never going to want to give you that, but you've done the groundwork to fight for it thus far.
This is my beautiful hotel, so I'm saying goodbye to it because I'm not going to be coming back. The lighting here is disgusting and I'm so sweaty. It's like 500 degrees. I'm not even lying. That's like a literal understanding or definition of the amount of degrees it is currently. Just hanging out in Palm Springs.
So they're the oldest one, right?
Yes, yes.
Aquarius is right below that. And then like Taurus is like the child. You know, like
Yeah.
I don't know the rest of them, but those are the three that I know because my friends were those.
Oh, that's so funny. It's actually, I used to call.
That's the way to explain it to you.
Yeah, but I heard this called from a book I read a long time ago that Pisces are the trash can of the zodiac because they picked up all the bad traits down the run of every sign.
Instead of the reverse, where they've gone through and learned all their lessons.
Yeah. And then there's I guess it's a low and high vibration of each one or whatever. But
On the moon sign.
yeah, do you know your moon sign? No. Wow, you do.
2006.
Wow, yeah, and you were like ahead of your time because now like astrology is very trendy. Like you were way ahead of your time because now people are just open up to it. Can I ask you how old you are? 40. So you're actually millennial or zennial, Gen X, but like millennial or
They call it something else.
a zennial. Yeah. It's always hard for me to say because I can read it. I'm like zennial, exennial. Certain people in our age group are into astrology. Like these Gen Z kids, like the Zoomers, are like 2016.
I think maybe because my mom like.
Yeah.
I don't want you to like get down on the ground and give me your blood. All I want is just like some clarity because the other thing is, as you know, the new generation, that's whether it's astrology they're just now becoming interested in because it's more mainstream, or whether it's LGBT performance art, which was not really accepted in 2006 and 7. Both of those topics, actually, the younger generation is now totally on board, and I'm happy for that. Like, I don't want that to seem...
Yeah.
But the non-acknowledgement that you did something for the first time in a certain way, and I guess the people who are always like, well, what do you want? Like, okay, great, you did it first. What do you want from us? It's like, all anyone really wants is for you to just like acknowledge that. Like, if they did something for the first time, they would want to feel acknowledged. That's human nature. The audience doesn't care to like invest or do their research to see how long you've been doing it, when the tide shifted. They don't care, so they just think you're just like on some tirade of like ego, when what it's really about is like, it's not ego, because wanting acknowledgement for something you've achieved is actually a very vulnerable want. It doesn't feel comfortable to have to plead for people to know that you did something for the first time. Like,
People don't like when you defend your work. They don't like when you accuse other people of trying to steal it. So much so that if you accuse someone of trying to take your content or copying them and they retaliate, you will be trolled. You will be in the wrong according to the mob on the internet. And why is that?
think about if this were any other time in history. You would not have to fight for this to be general knowledge. If we were discussing people not acknowledging what you've contributed at any other point in human history prior to the internet, it almost wouldn't even be possible to be a thing. Whether you were getting books published or whatever, I really, really do feel, because I can relate to you, I really do feel this comes down to, in the internet era, when you do something first for the first time and you knock down a wall, it is a really hard thing for people to understand because there's no copywriting to it on the internet. It's public knowledge. And I think that is really like what we're talking about, like on a bigger picture, is how artists, astrologers, performers, anyone gets the credit that they would have prior to the internet for being the first to do it in the way you did it. It's a very tricky subject that I think we're still learning about, because as time goes on, more people are going to do things for the first time.
Yeah.
And either they will, it's a really, I think, deep subject that's not limited to just astrology. I think it's really something that a lot of people can't relate to, but as time goes on, like this, we're ahead of the curve. So even this conversation, I think in years to come, people will still be trying to find this answer.
I wanted to document some of my experience getting canceled and discuss this with you because I feel as though it's something that needs to be said. What did I get out of being canceled? Knowledge. After 2 weeks of being trolled pretty hardcore, every time one of Natalia Taylor's videos came out, it hit me worse. Mondays, the 2 Mondays in a row were pretty bad. I learned something. I learned that people aren't people anymore. That we're just conquest, something that we can attack. I learned that defending your property is considered wrong according to the mob mentality. If you believe that you have a right to your own work and your own body, then why would you not believe that somebody also has the right to their own work, their own legacy? That people wouldn't just try to hurt you after they take your product, but they would actually pay homage to you, that they would actually want you to succeed with them, that they would shout you out for your big inspiration. Instead of accusing you of acting like you invented astrology. It is. The ego is the enemy to people, but we don't understand actually what ego is. Ego is not the deep inner desire, need for acknowledgement.
It's really hard for people sometimes to want to understand why someone feels they deserve credit or needs acknowledgement, because the brain automatically goes to like, that's so petty, there's bigger things going on in the world. And it's like, what it's actually about is something that's very human if they took the time to understand that, which is just like the same thing we all want, which is just like, even if I know my worth, like I still want you to kind of know my worth too. Like
Exactly.
I want you to know that you can go through the fire. You can be canceled for the stupidest shit. You could hold yourself up. The amount of hate comments I got, I mean, you would have think I did something awful. You would have thought that it was more than just a 10-second clip on an Instagram story while I was wearing a grandma sweater. You would have assumed that I actually was horrible, that I was disgusting, that I was gross, and that I was going after something that didn't belong to me. When in reality, anyone who knows does know this does belong to me. And nobody but myself is allowed to tell me what does and does not belong to me. And for anyone trying to take that away from me, maybe you should check your ego. Why do you so badly not want me to have what's mine? Why do you want to put words in my mouth? Why do you want to tell me that I think I invented astrology? That I think I invented hating on the signs? It's not about that, and it never was. It was about a piece of me, a project using my body, my mind, my voice, and my understanding of astrology that was replicated. And then I was told to stand down, because this is the internet, where anybody can take anything and you can treat it like it's a buffet for your own lifestyle sites, your own channels, your own Instagram, your own influence. You can take anything from anybody and call it yours, because who the fuck cares? And that's what we're talking about. We live in a world where you love nothing, where nobody loves anything, where there is no respect. And eventually, when you start creating and you do something and you go out on a limb and you work for something and somebody takes that, you will know how I felt. But until then, I just wanted to tell my story.
I found my paradise, even if it's only in my eyes. Oh, I'm chasing the sun before I come undone. Just need to catch some light so I can sleep tonight. I'm chasing the sun until my battle's won. Just wanna feel the rain, get to my golden state. Get to my golden state. Get to my golden state.
I might have gone a little bit too much in the past, and I believe that I have, but I've always just followed my own like intuition on the subject, and it has carried me into good places. There's parts of them that are very embarrassing for me because I'm like,
Right.
but I felt it. I just felt it. But then at the end of it, after it was all through, I was like, but I still like, I don't feel anything anymore. And I'm like, is that because I went through it? Or is it because like, if I just waited, I could have spiritually bypassed that whole energy?
At a certain point, like, okay, you've felt the embarrassment of things. You've been forgiven, I guess you could say. You've been disliked. It's a lot of things to reconcile in
Yes.
one mind. So I would say at a certain point, you're just like, okay, it is what it is, because it's too much to juggle if you go into the nitty gritty of like revisiting.
There are some celebrities on YouTube getting canceled I feel really bad for because, you know, looking back, it's like everyone has done or said something stupid. I'm not condoning racism or homophobia, but like, can you imagine like your worst moment being replayed forever for eternity?
Yeah, I felt that real lot with the Natalia Taylor video. Like, I let her go with it, but to see me in like my grandma sweater, like in this weird filter on Instagram, like on a platform for people to call Karen, you know, anger gets embarrassing, especially when it's documented. And it's also actually, it's a feminine thing. Like you were saying, you know, so you have to admit when you're jealous, you have to admit when you're angry. Like you go through the 7 deadly sins. Females are the 7 deadly sins. Like we're like the woman, you know, with wrapped in the snake, that imagery of lust. You know?
Also in numerology, the devil's number is 666, which is the number of woman because it relates to Venus. I don't think that's a coincidence, you know?